Thank you very much. You see the topic of what I'm going to talk, and here you can see the 6 points which I will deal with this evening. I do not so first point is Vedic science as alternative science. I will stick to my manuscript because I have quite a lot, so otherwise I get lost. I do not cover the wide range of aspects of Vedic science that popped up during the past decades in the Indian context, but I would limit my perspective only on one small field, that is on attempts to scientifically prove the effects of Vedic fire rituals. But to give you an idea about the discursive context in which this practice of the ritual and the research about the impact of Vedic fire rituals is carried out, I just want to mention some aspects and incidents which recently have pitchforked the Vedic science into the public domain, at least in India and among the Indian diaspora. In 2001, the Indian government, led by the Bharatiya Janata Party, launched a campaign to promote the creation of Vedic astrology or Jyotirvidyan departments at universities. The University Grants Commission, that is the national agency responsible for determining and maintaining standards of teaching, examination and research in universities, as well as for attributing research and teaching funds under the Ministry of Education. In 2001, they published a ministerial circular called Guidelines for Setting Up Departments of Vedic Astrology in Universities. So this is quite similar to what Professor Lackner presented to us about Taiwan recently. Here you see the logo of the University Grants Commission and picture for astrology. The logo says more or less, knowledge and science liberates, if you translate it from Hindi. The circular states that there is an urgent need to rejuvenate the science of Vedic astrology in India to allow this scientific knowledge to reach society at large and to provide opportunities to get this important science even exported to the world. So universities were invited to submit proposals for establishing departments that would provide teaching and training of Vedic astrology, leading to certificate, diploma, undergrad, postgraduate, and PhD degrees. And Katarina Guenzi, whom Michael Lackner has mentioned this afternoon, has done a wonderful research, her doctoral thesis on astrology in India, and we hope we can invite her for a conference, for a workshop, or even as a fellow. This is the first example. Second example, in October 2014, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave his inaugural address in a conference at Sir H.N. Reliance Foundation Hospital in Mumbai. Describing neonatal and maternal mortality rates as a matter of grave concern, he promised that his government wanted to effectively use its campaign called Made in India, and the second campaign is Digital India, to improve the healthcare facilities and education for the poor. And he argued that in ancient times, India had marked new frontiers in the field of science. I quote, Mahabharata says Karna was not born out of his mother's womb. This means people then were aware of genetic science. There must have been a plastic surgeon who fixed an elephant's head on Ganesha. Karna, according to the Itihasa mythology, is the son of the sun god Surya and the princess Kunti, that is the mother of the 5 Pandava brothers in the Mahabharata. Third example, 1 year later in 2015, at the Indian Science Congress held in Mumbai University, Anand Bodas, a retired Indian pilot, gave a lecture in which he argued that Indians had mastered aviation thousands of years before the Wright brothers, He said the world's first plane was invented by the Hindu sage Maharishi Bharadwaj many hundred years ago. While his speech roused a hot debate among scientists in India and beyond, wondering whether this was a genuine, if implausible, scientific claim or an effort at fostering national pride, or just a part of an ongoing campaign to boost the agendas of the country's new Hindu national leaders. Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar, who was present at the session, said that ancient Indian science was based on experience and logic, and that wisdom must be recognized. India's Science and Technology Minister Harash Vardhan made another starting claim at the conference, saying that ancient Indian mathematics also discovered the Pythagorean theorem, but the Greeks got the credit. Before I now go into details of analyzing research related to the Vedic fire rituals, I briefly give you an idea of what is discussed about the relationship of science and Vedic science by referring only to two among many, many random examples. In May 2021, Subhendu Das from the Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science in the Department of Physical Chemistry published an article on the topic Modern Science versus Vedic Science. And there he argues the Vedic science is entirely based on observation, just like what Galileo observed. Vedic science does not, therefore, any assumptions, and it is a record of what you see as happening in nature. The Vedic science also has another very crucial difference. It observed two types of causes: A, efficient cause, and B, material cause behind every phenomenon. As a result, Vedic science is valid for the entire universe and for all time, past, present, and future. We will illustrate all results of Vedic science with observations in nature. Such examples will be beyond comprehension for modern science. Prof.Dr. Chaturvedi and Dr. Rohit Rastogi of the Dayabad Educational Institute in Agra in India, to whom I will come back later, argue in an international journal for reliable and qualitative e-healthcare, Indian ancient Vedic science, which has fascinated world's researchers, has become more relevant in the 21st century because of other global crises and threats. It has shown a powerful impact in all the areas of life, especially in curing physical and mental ailments. Various violent incidents in European countries and the USA have forced the world political, religious, and science leaders to find alternative remedies. Mental fitness has been a great channel, and yajna science, that is, the yajna is fire ritual, has multiple advantages and effective affirmative responses in this direction. So Vedic science, according to these few descriptions, includes a dimension of reality that cannot be experienced by human senses in the ordinary, everyday status of consciousness. But it is claimed that in the connection with so-called modern science, it can be proved as valid and measurable. And furthermore, there is the claim that it contributes to the improvement of life conditions. Critics of Vedic science, like Nehring, consider especially these approaches in Vedic science that combine scientific methods as established in dominant science discourse with spiritual aspects as pseudo-rational beliefs, as irrational and as superstition that contain only a semblance of rationality. What is striking that there is a field of science emerging in which Vedic science is objectified and socialized. The epistemological status that Vedic science and research on the impact of Vedic rituals enjoys within the dominant paradigm of contemporary Western thought is that it is not taken serious at all. Scholarly institutions like universities, research clusters, or research laboratories normally would not recognize it as legitimate knowledge production. And to argue in a scientific publication that the positive effect of the Vedic fire ritual on human health or the improvement of the environment can be proved and validated as true would not be accepted by any peer reviewer in the West. I personally do not believe in the truth claims of Vedic science and the scientific proof of environmental effects of the Vedic fire rituals myself. But the fact that I do not believe in Vedic science has been instrumental in the choice of this research subject. Indeed, my interest in the study of Vedic science was stirred when I encountered the subject matter 2 years ago in a conference in the Indian University at Diyarbakir, Agra. And what led me to ask about the role of Vedic science in India was the experience that a subject that within the Western informed intellectual paradigm is considered as esoteric or as superstitious beliefs with no rational foundation can be seen as rational within another paradigm of thought where it enjoys such a high institutional status that it is taught and researched at universities. One example may do. The publication of the annual report 2022 of the International Conference on Ambient Intelligence in Healthcare, which is an annual forum that brings together ideas, innovations, lessons, and so on associated with machine learning, intelligent computing, and their application in different areas, especially in healthcare. And among the contributions like brain tumor detections by multi-level thresholding using opposition equilibrium optimizers, or another article, 5G revolution transforming the delivery in healthcare. We also find an article by Rohit Rastogi and Devendra Chaturvedi from Diyarbakir and others on quantification of HOMA effect on air quality in NCR, India, pollution and pandemic challenges in city and healthcare remedies. NCR is National Capital Region, that is the wider region of New Delhi, or of Delhi, so to say. And another article they also published in the same volume examining the air quality index with the effect of Agnihotra in the NCR region, extracting knowledge for sustainable society and holistic development with Healthcare 5.0. The novelties of research and the author's claim is that, I quote, Vedic science methods have the positive effect through yajna and hava, two words for rituals, on both isolated and non-isolated environments. My encounter with these scientists at Diyarbakir Educational Institute in Agra, a deemed to be university that is part of the Radhaswami Satsang in Diyarbakir, did not lead to questions whether the claim of the results in their research on Agnihotra is true or not, but my further inquiry about the value and the truth this knowledge is invested with within the Indian society and beyond, also in Germany and elsewhere. I come to point 2, the decline of Agnihotra. Agnihotra is a traditional Indian domestic ritual, and it is, so to say, the simplest form of yajna performed at sunset and sunrise, in which cow dung is burned in a copper pot by using cow ghee and brown rice as oblation, along with chanting mantras to sun and fire. Agnihotra, the Agnihotra ritual that has been described and established in various forms in the Shruti literature especially in the Vedas, Samhitas, the Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads, Shrauta and Kriya Sutras. These are Vedic texts. Since the 19th century, Agnihotra also has been subjected to textual research by Indologists and Sanskritists. I will not bother you with details about this research here in my talk, but in the paper you can read it later if you want. But scholars like Fritz Stahl claim that these rituals nowadays have no meaning. Stahl has undertaken an extensive field research about Nambutiri Brahmins in South India and documented the fire altar stratification they performed in his famous book Agni, the Vedic ritual of the fire altar. Following this research, which he has done for many years, he argued that attempts to interpret these rituals and find out some meaning in them is useless, since they follow rules without meaning. Vedic sacrifices practiced today, Stahl considers to be anachronistic, especially in terms of their language and symbolism. He argues that these rituals are pure activities that have survived regardless of their social cultural context. And therefore, Stahl has interpreted this form of ritual as meaningless to religion and the society. On the other hand, in the course of history, there can only be found a few cases where the Vedic ritual of Agnihotra is performed in the traditional way, and the practice has almost died out. In Indological studies, various reasons for the apparent decline of early Vedic sacrifices are discussed. One argument is related to the decline of the importance of Vedic gods like Indra and Agni in later Hinduism, in which the Hindu pantheon focused on God that were of little influence in early Vedic texts, like, for example, Shiva or Vishnu. And with the decline of the influence of the Vedic gods, the sacrifices related to them declined as well. Instead, the multi-puja as a ritual that reveres an iconic god took over, and Vedic priests changed their religious affiliation from sacrifice to more Puranic or Tantric rituals and forms of bhakti devotion. An important argument is that with the Aranyakas, forest books, you can translate them, and the emergence of Buddhism, sacrificial fire rituals were considered meaningless, and the energy formerly attributed to the fire ritual could now be activated by inner religious practice, like meditation, which was considered to be able to produce energy, tapas, so the internal energy. Another argument goes that with the implementation of sacrificial feasts, so-called dakshinas, during the time of the growing influence of the Brahmin caste, sacrificial rituals changed from everyday performance to an exclusive ritual, since normal people from twice-born caste could not afford the daily payment of the officiating priest. And another argument gives that the education and training of priests that could officiate the Vedic rituals has become more and more complex and time-consuming with the growth of textual sources, and less Brahmins underwent the training that was required. Although Agnihotra and other fire rituals never completely vanished from the Indian scene, one can consider that Vedic fire rituals have lost their importance for the daily practice in Hinduism for, you can say, thousands of years. Therefore, it is even more astonishing that today, not only in India, but in many parts of the world, the Agnihotra ritual is performed daily, regularly, and that new meanings are connected with this ritual. Before I go to explain how this ritual is used for scientific research, let me just give an overview of how the ritual is performed today in some Indian communities as well as in Germany, according to a specific tradition that was established only some decades ago. So how to perform Agnihotra? At the precise local sunrise and sunset timings, 2 pinches of uncooked rice grains smeared with a few drops of cow ghee are offered into the fire. The fire is prepared in a semi-pyramidal copper pot, and while offering 2 portions to the fire, 2 simple Vedic mantras have to be chanted. At sunrise, the first mantra is Suryaya Swaha, Suryaya Idam Namama. And then Prajapataye Swaha, Prajapataye Idam Namama. And at sunset, Agnaye Swaha, Agnaye Idam Namama, Prajapataye Swaha, Prajapataye Idam Namama. The local sunrise and sunset timings have to be checked beforehand, and about 5 to 10 minutes before the actual sunrise and sunset time, pieces of dry cowdunk cakes have to be arranged in this copper pot. A small square piece of cowdunk is to be placed at the bottom of the pot. Then 2 small pieces are to be placed at the front and back side of the pot. And on top, 2 lower pieces are to be arranged vertically. So it's all very clearly described along the left and right sides of the pot. And then 2 more layers. Then another piece of cowdunk has to be applied with ghee and lit and put into the center of the pot. When the fire is fully ablaze, the Agnihotra can begin. One has to take 2 pinches of clean, unbroken rice, grains smeared with this, as I said, drop of ghee, and then at exact sunrise time, one has to chant the first mantra, Suryaya Swaha, and immediately upon saying Swaha, 1 part of the rice grain has to be given into the fire, and then the first part of the mantra has to be completed with the word Suryaya Idam Namama. Chanting the second line of the mantra, the other part of the rice grains has to be offered to the fire, saying Prajapataye Swaha, followed by chanting Prajapataye Idam Namama. And the ash of the Agnihotra has to be kept in a separate container. And of course, the evening Agnihotra, I don't have to elaborate, follows the same line. The mantras can be translated as this is for Surya, for the sun, and this is not for me. Swaha is something, it's a difficult term to translate. This is something like holy, honor, something like that. Very difficult to translate. Then this is for Surya, this is not for me. This is for Agni, fire god, this is not for me. And this is Prajapati, this is not for me. Prajapati is, so to say, the creator god. 4th part from Agnihotra from India to Germany. The form of the ritual, which I just explained, goes back to Param Sadguru Sri Gayanan Maharaj, who lived from 1918 till 1987. At the age of 20, he became the head of the Guru Mandir in Akkalkot. And in 1938, according to his own account, he had a vision for the first time, in which Parasurama began to instruct him. Before him, on September 27th, 1944, he took the oath that he would revive the Vedas, which were in danger of being forgotten. Gajanan intended the Agnihotra as he understood it, to install as a non-violent sacrifice for the new age of peace. When Gajanan died in December 1987, he considered his task complete and he had not appointed a successor in his ashram. But there were some of his followers who continued his work, and one of them was Mr. Prof.Dr, who in 1963 performed the Agnihotra in the exact form which I just have explained to you for the first time, and standardized this methodology for Agnihotra. What is important, he started propagating its use and especially benefits for the environment and for improving health. Another disciple was Sri Vasant Pranjapani, who made Agnihotra known in this form in Europe and in the USA. In the late 1980s, Vasant Pranjapani began to establish the first Homa therapy centers. Homa is another word for this fire ritual, in which the effectiveness of the fire ritual on the environment and the health should be studied and made visible. In 1988, Vasant Pranjapani met the German couple Horst and Birgit Heigl, who on his instruction founded a Homa farm in Oberhaslach, that is near the Bodensee in English, near the
Lake of Constance.
The Lake of Constance, okay. In Oberhaslach, Heiligenberg, where the effects of Homa on the planet and especially on the fertility for plants, they wanted to analyze. Heigl founded a non-profit association called Community for Homa Farming, which later changed its name to the Association for Homa Therapy. In this farm, Agnihotra rituals are performed daily, but also seminars and retreats are offered. I just attended a couple of online seminars in this farm and went there in June. Birgit and Horst Heigl have written a book about their experiments with Agnihotra, in which they made clear that the exact performance of the ritual can help to revive the Vedas, and in doing so they argue Agnihotra is a fire performed at sunset and sunrise in a special pyramid-shaped vessel. It is so powerful in its effect that it can be considered as the solution to the problems of the present time and the time to come. This can be performed regardless of cultural habits, regardless of religious affiliation, and regardless of whether somebody is a believer or not. Everyone can follow the instructions given in his religion. Agnihotra is an additional enrichment. Heigl, in his motivation why Agnihotra is beyond confessional and religious boundaries, also often quotes biblical verses in order to prove that Agnihotra is nothing but the response to foundational religious values and can be applied by everyone everywhere. For example, fire is considered as a medium for revelation in various religions. Even Moses experienced God in the burning thorn bush on Mount Horeb. So, but there are many, many other biblical references. Even more, also the vessel used to burn the cow dung and the offerings has a universal meaning. Traditionally, it is said that Guru Gajanan has defined the size of the Agnihotra pot by measuring it with his fingers. Therefore, the basement should have a length of 5.25 by 5.25 centimeters at the bottom and 14.5 centimeters by 14.5 centimeters at the open top, and the height should be exactly 6.5 centimeters. And this is exactly by Vedic recommendations. You can imagine nowhere in the Vedas you can find this kind of instruction. But Horst Heigl did some research about the mystical meaning of the size of the dish. Without referring directly to a discourse about the mystical dimension of the pyramids, called pyramidology, which was prominent in the theosophical and occult circles in the 19th century, he argued that the form, the steps, and the ring of the Agnihotra dish are by no means only determined by manufacturing technology, but result mathematically via geometry, and the high spiritual knowledge is reflected in it. He describes and illustrates various geometric systems that show relationships between the pyramid of Gizeh and the Agnihotra dish. The pyramid, he argues, represents a symbol for the path of development, which we pass through in many incarnations and which lead us through the great cosmo-astrological zodiac. Horst Heigl claims that the geometry of the Agnihotra bowl If the base and the steps and the rim were measured as exactly as possible, proves that the angle measured across the sides is equal to the angle of repose by the pyramid of Gizeh. Through the Agnihotra pyramid, basic forms of geometry and of creation are contained in the form of the Agnihotra vessel, and this is a means to concentrate the existing energies and transform them into something that he calls divine energy. He refers to the Sanskrit word for energy prana, and pyramid is a reverberating to the Earth's magnetic field and creates life force, energy, or prana. Important is the very individual etymology of the word pyramid that he gives. Pyra comes from Greek, meaning meaning fire, and mid from Latin, medie, which means middle. Therefore, pyramid is actually fire in the middle. Fire in the middle is for him an apt description of the natural life energy force that is found in the center of the pyramid. Due to the combination of shape of the vessel and the ingredients and the mantras, the Homerhof or Homer Farm Heiligenberg assumes that Vedic sacrifices of the daily Agnihotra can help people to combat negative effects caused by environmental pollution. I just give you two examples which I will not comment here much, but I can send the PowerPoint around later. The use of Agnihotra in practical life, which can be applied in the fields of agriculture, forestry, medicine, is referred to by them as Homa therapy. The positive effect can be achieved through the sacrificial fire. Horst and Birgit Heil emphasize that the carbon dioxide released in the ritual increases the oxygen production of plants, which causes the purification on various levels. And here you can see how the fire ritual affects the body. On the one hand, the Vedic sacrifice purifies the air. On the other hand, it causes a reduction of pathogenic bacteria. But also the ash resulting from the sacrificial fire has both growth promoting and healing agents, which can be used promisingly in the context of Homa therapy. Monika Koch, a pharmacist and Homa therapist, introduces her book on Agnihotra like this. Homa therapy is a fully revealed science. It is as old as creation. In the course of time, this knowledge has been lost, but it's now being revived to give people guidelines on how to cleanse the planet from all the pollution that surrounds us today. Homa therapy comes from the Vedas, the oldest knowledge known to mankind. It is a wonderful gift that makes healing available to everyone in a natural way, original from the ancient knowledge of the Vedas. Point 5, Agnihotra, a fire ritual under scrutiny at the Dayarbakh Educational Institute. In the middle of the 19th century, a new faith emerged in Agra in the tradition of a North Indian devotion of saints, or so-called sants. And the founder of this direction of Indian religious history is Shiv Dayal Singh. His place of activity was Agra, where until today there are branches of various communities belonging to this movement. Soon after the death of the movement, of the movement's founder, the movement has split into two branches, famous branches, one in Agra and the other one in Punjab, Beas. In Agra itself, there are two sub-branches. One is Dayarbakh, which can be translated as the Garden of the Merciful. Dayalbag is the headquarter of the Radhaswami Satsang community. It is a self-contained colony of followers known for its charitable, educational, agricultural, industrial institutions. Already Mahatma Gandhi has visited Dayalbag and was very much impressed. And you can say over the years it has grown into really into an eco-village. Dayalbag can be considered as an educational hub with the influence far beyond the region of Agra. In 1981, Dayalbag Educational Institute was accorded the deemed university status by the government of India. The research on Agnihotra done at Dayalbag is informed by the following research areas the Institute has implemented during the past decade. Quantum nanocomputing, soft computing, multimedia technologies, virtual instrumentation, microwaves and photonics, peace education, human rights education, environmental science, theology and Indian music. The Center for Consciousness Studies, to which I have been invited for a conference, has recently been established at the Dayalbag Education Institute. The center is located adjunct to a quantum nanosystems center in the so-called Research and Technology Park. Among others, 2 scholars from Dayalbag have conducted research about the influence of Agnihotra, especially on environment issues and on health. I have mentioned them already. One is Professor Devendra Chaturvedi, who is working in the Department of Electrical Engineering and in the Faculty of Engineering. And his area of specialization is soft computing, power and energy systems, electrical machines, solar energy, modeling and simulation of systems, and human consciousness. And the other one is Dr. Rohit Rastogi, and he's associate professor in the field of computer science and engineering. In an additional volume on machine learning with healthcare perspective, Chaturvedi and Rastogi, among others, published an article titled Yajna and Mantra Science Bringing Health and Comfort to Indo-Asian Public, a Healthcare 4.0 Approach and Computational Study. There they argue that in order to deal with an increasing number of unknown illnesses, verbal anxiety, highly polluted environments, and environmental imbalances, Yajna or Agnihotra seems to be a gift from the ancient Indian science. Yajna and mantra therapy is the treatment method which can revolutionize the area of medical science and the way disease are all cured will also change significantly by the use of this therapy. It also has the power of curing deadly diseases like cancer, which now require doing chemotherapy, which is very painful and costly. Yajna and mantra therapy can also be called as treatment for the future. They attempt to apply mist and edge computing, I don't even know what that is, anyway, ambient computing and machine learning algorithms, and what they call neuro-fuzzy systems as methodological tools to their research. But at the same time, they refer to Vedic sacrifices as the essence of a knowledge that was once gained by the Vedic seers in continuous experiences and enabled them to bring about certain results with the help of this ritual. Chaturvedi and Rastogi argue in this article that the terminal energy that comes from yajna purifies the energy existing in the matter and demolishes sinful energies. They have done research with a set of diabetic patients in the pre-diabetic stage, and for that they have used checkers and testers for measuring levels of various parameters in blood, like glucose checker to measure the amount of glucose present in blood, hemoglobin checker to measure the amount of red blood cells present in blood. And they have been collecting the data of patients over 10 years and pollution level they were exposed over this period in order to be able to compare the data, checked whether the application of Agnihotra-Fire is able to improve the conditions or not. The result of their study they summarize as follows. The different experiments is conducted at different places also have proven the usefulness of power of yatra and mantra therapy. Thus, the yatra and mantra therapy is the treatment method which can revolutionize the area of medical science. Yatra and mantra therapy can also be called as treatment for the future. The research on the effect of the health has been broadened by research on positive effects on the environment, especially reducing air pollution and the beneficial effect of Agnihotra on plant growth. The heat energy that is generated during Agnihotra-Fire and the sound energy by chanting of mantras, so goes the argument, both in their combination contribute according to the findings presented in a scientific peer-reviewed journal by scholars from Diyarbakir to achieve desired physiochemical, biological, and spiritual benefits. Similar claims are made by scholars who conducted their research in the context of the Institute of Bioinformatics and Biotechnology at the Pune University or in the Department of Environmental Sciences at the Ferguson College in Pune. And here you can see how they, in a diagrammatic form, how they showed the results of their research. At Diyarbakir, the relationship between science and spirituality has been an issue from the very beginning. Anand Swarup, considered to be the fifth Sadguru of the Radhaswami Satgam in Agna and the founder of the Diyarbakir Colony and Educational Institute, promoted the establishment of science at the Diyarbakir from the very beginning. But already the third Guru, Maharaj Sahib, in his discourse on the Radhaswami faith has stated, there is no conflict between true science and true religion. The researcher of the former only confirmed to establish all the esoteric and occult principles of the later. Anand Swarup in his youth has been a member of the Arya Samaj, and it is to be assumed that his understanding of the relation between religion and science has been derived from an extremely influential document from the 19th century, that is Swami Dayanand Saraswati Satya Prakash, translated Light of Truth, a foundational document of the Hindu reform movement Arya Samaj. So I come slowly to the end. Now these developments in Germany and in Diyarbakir are reflecting only a wider, nowadays global movement to invest the ritual with scientific meaning. Brahm Sadguru Sri Gayanam Maharaj vowed that he will revive the Vedas, as you remember, by reviving the Agnihotra ritual. But he was not the first. The idea of the scientific meaning of a ritual and Hindu science in general has originated in the Orientalist research of the late 18th century. Under the influence of Western Orientalism exercised over the discourse of Hinduism, the rationality, authenticity of traditions had to be proven under the shadow of Western power. So it's a kind of hegemonic power that has been executed by the Western Orientalists, which now has to be responded to. This drove Hindu intellectuals to reinterpret the rationality of classical texts in the light of modern science's authority, describing Hinduism as a body of scientific knowledge and practice and as the defining heritage of all Indians. Religious reformers and practicing scientists spoke repeatedly of a forgotten but true knowledge of the ancient Hindus. Seizing on the Orientalist research about ancient Indian culture, they declare that their ancient text embodied scientific truth, that science was originally Hindu. One extremely influential figure in this discourse was this Dayanand Saraswati. He was the founder of an organization that again influenced today political, religious politics. So you can even say that the Arya Samaj is, so to say, the birth mother of later Hindu nationalist movement up to the Bharatiya Janata Party today. The Arya Samaj, Dayanand claimed this superiority of the Vedas over other texts and traditions because they alone were consistent with science. Only the Aryans, the most ancient people of India and possessors of the, quote, most ancient records of knowledge, could answer questions about reality. And such a claim on behalf of the Vedas could not be confined to philosophical matters, but had to extend to daily practices of Vedic religion if the modern Hindus were to be refashioned in the image of their scientific forebears. And this meant that Vedic rituals, of which the Homa or Agnihotra was the most important, had to be presented as scientific in inspiration and purpose, and for the Vedic sacrificial fire and the recitation of mantras, Dayanand offered explanations that invoked the authority of science. In Satya Prakash, this main document of Dayanand, he gives clear instructions of the material and the elements that should be used and how the ritual has to be performed. And then he explains the reason and meaning of the Agnihotra in a, you can even say, Platonic dialogical form. So the question is, what is good for doing a Homa? And the answer, it is well-known fact that impure air and pure water are productive of disease, which in turn causes so much pain and misery, while pure air, and pure water are productive of health and consequently of happiness. The question, I should think that it would be more good to apply sandal locally as a plaster and to eat butter instead. Is it wise to waste these things by destroying them in fire? Answer. That only shows your ignorance of physical science, for it is one of its cardinal principles that nothing is really lost in this world. You must have noticed that even when you are standing at some distance from the place where Homa is being performed, you can smell a sweet, fragrant odor in the air. That alone proves that an odoriferous substance put into the fire is not destroyed, but on the other hand, being rarefied, fills the room and is carried by the air to distant places where it rids the air of its foulness. Dayanand has introduced a new meaning to the Homa Agnihotra ritual on assumed scientific grounds. It was his intention to point out that these rituals have nothing to do with offering sacrifices or with pleasing or manipulating any gods. He even more argues that to re-establish the Vedic ritual of Agnihotra at the time of colonial dominance by the British and continuous corruption among the various Hindu sects, that will purify India and bring it back to its former greatness and the greatness that it had during the time of Vedic culture. In golden days of India, saints and seers, princes and princesses, kings and queens, and other people used to spend a large amount of time and money in performing and helping others to perform Homa. And so long as this system lasted, India was free from disease and its people were happy. It can become so again if the same system were revised. The new meaning he gives to rituals without meaning lies in the purifying benefits for the environment. Dayal has argued that the meaning of the Homa Agnihotra can be found in its ethical dimension, which, according to him, represents the true religion, and that the pure ritual performance is indeed only a ritual without meaning. In a supplement to Satya Prakash, he states, I hold that the performance of yajna is the most commendable. It consists in showing due respect to the wise and the learned in the proper application of the principles of chemistry and of physical and mechanical science to the affairs of life, in the dissemination of knowledge and culture, in the performance of Agnihotra, which, by contributing to the purification of air and water, rain and vegetables, directly promotes the well-being of all sentient creatures. So the recent research, and this is my last sentence, undertaken with the Agnihotra falls into this tradition of reform movement under British colonialism. The research with Agnihotra and Dayal shows that the contemporary intention is to invest the ritual with meaning again, by relating it to global environmental and health problems and giving it a significance beyond the Indian context. The ancient Agnihotra ritual was not displaced from the Indian society as one might have assumed in view of numerous theories of secularization. Rather, it was modernized and adapted to the contemporary theme, and it was globalized, as we can see in the Homa farm at Heidelberg. Thank you. And this is my question.